Before getting started, this video is available ad-free in an audio podcast form on locals.com to monthly subscribers. It's basically like Patreon, but better, and allows people to support the channel. Also, my entire content library is available on Odyssey, which is a YouTube alternative for those that want to try out a new platform. Links are down below in the description. Alright, today is going to be my first impressions video for Baldurs Gate 3, and in order to set the stage properly, I'll need to make one thing very, very clear. I do not have a long history with the Baldurs Gate franchise or with Dungeons & Dragons itself. I've played some a long time ago, but I'm far from an expert, and this impressions video is essentially going to come from a novice perspective. As a result of that, the main criticism that I have right now isn't even really a criticism that will universally apply, because some people simply won't struggle the way that I did with the things that gave me trouble. There are issues I'll talk about like bugs and glitches, which do apply pretty broadly right now given the early access nature of the game, but when a company releases a $60 PC game, even branded with the title of early access, I believe it's fair to say that if they feel comfortable charging you $60, they are comfortable having the game evaluated through that lens. And if they aren't, well, that's too bad. You put it up on Steam for $60, it's getting analyzed for what it is. With all that said, let's truly begin, because my main complaint, quote unquote, that isn't really a traditional complaint, is that the game is incredibly complex for anyone new to the franchise or new to Dungeons & Dragons, while making basically no effort at all to educate them, or even give them resources to help. Now, I have to be crystal clear here because it's paramount that my intention not be misconstrued. I do not and would never advocate for a change in the fundamental design of this game to dumb it down or anything of the sort. However, at the very least, having a few tooltip pop-ups, a basic encyclopedia, and some of the existing widespread D&D educational material that exists elsewhere transcribed into some sort of almanac or rulebook or something like that, accessible through a menu, that seems like a critical, necessary, and unbelievably simple concept that has been entirely and completely ignored here. I am thoroughly enjoying myself right now. I'm having an incredible time, but I was streaming the game. It's up on the channel for those that want to watch. The archive is, but I was streaming it to something like 1,000 people for my entire 7 hours so far. This is a key point to make because whenever I had an issue, I had a lot of them by the way, an issue or a problem or a piece of information I did not know, there were at least a few dozen, probably more D&D and Baldur's Gate experts in my chat room who could help me. The D&D community is fantastic. They are welcoming, intelligent, helpful, and so much more, but the side effect of this is that as a true novice here, the largest problem I had was mitigated by my ability to get coached through certain mechanics and receive helpful hints literally all the time during my play session when I struggled. This won't be true for most players who come into this without extensive prior expertise and knowledge. And if you really do play Baldur's Gate 3 from the perspective of a brand new player, I'm sorry, but it might be a horrible, painful experience, void of almost all the intricate details that make it enjoyable to begin with, at least as of right now. Not to mention the incredible difficulty bestowed on your playthrough because you simply do not have any sort of assistance understanding basic functionalities. Again, I am not saying that they should modify the open-ended, strategic, and complex infrastructure the game has. I would never in my life ask for such a thing, ever. But at the bare minimum, it is developmentally irresponsible to launch this game for $60 without even an encyclopedia with rudimentary gameplay pages and mechanical explanations. The very same things that make the game amazing will cause novice players to quit in frustration. And that is very sad to see when the underlying game itself clearly has so much to offer. All that being said, now I can go a bit more in depth here. The game is in a strange position from what I understand with regards to its adherence to standard D&D atmosphere. The framework is 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, and personally I have no experience with that particular edition, but for those that do, the game is described as being more akin to Divinity Original Sin 3 than previous Baldur's Gate entries. Divinity Original Sin 2, by any and all explanation, is an excellent game, so for some people that might be a huge positive, but for others not so much. The basic mechanics are a mix of turn-based and real-time action. All combat is always turn-based, but exploration outside of direct combat encounters can be real-time. I found that it was much smoother and much more enjoyable not to have turn-based mode active outside of combat, but they do provide the player with a choice. Now, the thing that made me fall in love, facilitated by my ability to garner information from experts in my live stream chat, just keep that in mind, was the depth and complexity of this game. From the very beginning, sorting through the character creation and the various stat points that clearly have a very profound impact on your playstyle and future potential, all the way to individual combat encounters where you can choose to shoot a goblin on a box, make him sleep, knock him out, petrify him, knock him over and trip him, any number of status effects like lighting him on fire, knock the box out from under him, shove him off of the box and down the stairs, like literally dozens and dozens of options. Your characters bloom outward in spectacular fashion, spells on top of spells on top of spells, meaningful and powerful choices as they gain levels, millions of ways to go about any one single encounter. The depth is incredible. Quests so far seem to be totally disconnected from any sort of forced linearity. Half the quests I find end up going completely sideways, in a very good way, and I don't think I have ever played a game in my entire life that felt more alive and fluid based on what I individually choose. Something may feel like it's obviously a story quest and obviously a story NPC. In most other games out there, you can't kill story NPCs, and you sort of get shoehorned into a very linear chain of tasks that push you ahead in a particular sequence. But in Baldurs Gate 3, if that's even true, which it might not be, I can't tell in the slightest. There were numerous times already where it felt like a critical watershed moment for the story, with an important NPC who you must interact with in a certain way. Every single time, the exchange would turn out differently than I expected. Every single time, it felt like what I chose radically changed how I not only interacted with them, but everyone else moving forward. And every single time, the game successfully bestowed a feeling of importance upon me as the player in this evolving world. That same level of importance extends to combat as well. Combat is not exactly constant, and it's not even that frequent if you don't go specifically looking for it, but when it does happen, it's very high risk. Part of this will obviously be my own inexperience with optimal strategy so far, but it seems like the combat is deliberately dangerous and rewarding so as to always convey an accurate level of importance. One complaint I do have is turn sequence length. There are far too many situations where combat mechanics will be unfolding that do not interact with your characters at all, occur outside your sphere of access, and even pertain to completely separate NPC characters, but you have to sit through all of it. There is no option I could find to speed up the resolution of computer actions. So if you end up in a big fight with your party and a lot of other participants on the field actively, you will spend 3 or 4 times as long just watching them do things that don't even affect you as you do actually playing. That's bad. No one plays a video game to watch the computer do things that don't even affect your party. The only ones that do that are those idle clicker mobile gamers, and most of you probably already know what I think of that entire genre. When it comes to items and inventory, again, I've only just scratched the surface. I've barely even started finding more powerful magic items, and even then, the few that I've found radically changed how I interact with practically any quest. For instance, I found an amulet that lets me speak with dead corpses, but I only get to ask a few questions, so I have to make them count. When I do it badly, I learn absolutely nothing. Had I done it better, I don't even know how it would have impacted my party, but that's one amulet from one dungeon that has applications and value basically for the entire rest of the game. The intricacy is hard to describe. Your mage can throw a fireball and the fire burns on the ground. Your rogue can dip his weapons in the fire or light a torch off of it, and all of this occurs in either real-time or turn-based strategy mode, both in and out of combat. And I can only guess at how many unique interactions between spells and items exist that I just simply haven't discovered. The skill ceiling is incredible. I have a bad habit of just bull rushing and going for maximum damage and sometimes a flank or a stealth attack. My main character is ranged, but your positioning, your choice of active and prepared spells, your ability to prioritize where and when you use your limited number of spellcasts, and how you interact with the environment, which has a hefty number of different ways that it can be utilized, such as stacking boxes on top of one another in combat even to get to a rooftop, a place that in most other games like this would just be unreachable, but since you can move items, a whole new world of potential opens. I have discovered a number of small-scale, quality of life issues. A few examples would be your inventory, where for some reason, in certain scenarios, items are shared across characters, but even at a vendor, when you are selling and negotiating, there is no centralized currency or item pool. Each character must execute their own sales with the vendor. You just have to click to their unique portrait and then do all of it again, and then send items to and from each other, which is what I like to call too realistic. Sure, it kind of makes literal sense, but it's a game. You're in an allied party. Just take out the tedious middle step of sending items from one person to the other. We can all assume that they share an inventory, at least during that one vendor transaction. Another thing was how the spells require a certain resource, which is a tier 1 square or a tier 2 square that's visible above the bar, and the higher tiers can't cast lower tiers. That seems really dumb. Maybe it's a glitch and someone in my livestream chat indicated they believed it was. I hope so, because a fault I keep coming back to with this game is that it's almost borderline trying to be too complicated on purpose, in a way that is simply irritating and not at all engaging. I believe it stops short of that pitfall, at least right now, but it's really close. It's on the verge, it's really on the edge, and they definitely need to be careful. One last point, which is honestly more like me trying to dispel what I believe are unfounded rumors, this game is not perceivably woke in my eyes. I hope it's clear by now that when a game shoehorns in politics and those politics beat you over the head with some garbage liberal activist propaganda, I will call it out and criticize whoever is responsible. I do not see that from Baldurs Gate 3, and I'm frankly completely bewildered by the number of people I've seen claiming that the game has fallen to the SJWs. I just don't see it. I'm 7 hours in. Who knows? Maybe it totally flips at some point. I'm not sure and turns into a joke, but I have absolutely no expectation that such a thing will happen. No indication of woke politics ruining the game. And Larian Studios, the developers behind the project, have produced excellent content in the past and have undeniably earned our trust. This game, from where I stand here and now, does not deserve to be criticized for some imagined woke agenda, and there is nothing I have seen to make me think that that will ever change. The biggest problems are lack of information, no encyclopedia, and really, man, I cannot believe that they put this out there without even some kind of transcribed written lore from Dungeons and Dragons that can help guide you through. Like, no encyclopedia? That's brutal and just ridiculous to me, but whatever. There's bugs and glitches that will harm your experience definitively, and it's $60 for that entire experience right now on Steam. They chose that price tag. The biggest positive is a world of depth and possibility to rival nearly any other game on the entire market, and I still have only barely scratched the surface. Eventually, when the game does officially release, your $60 purchase now will get you the full game then, but this impressions video is aimed at what the game is, not what the game will likely become. As it stands, it's a fun game. I have no doubt I will personally get my money's worth, but that largely hinges on my ability to have a live stream chat room to enhance the experience and help me and give me information. Without that very key factor, I possibly may have reached peak frustration within that 7-hour time frame already and quit for good. So for this one, buyer beware. Honestly, truly, buyer beware. If you're an expert, you enjoy turn-based games, and you appreciate complexity, probably a really safe bet. Probably an excellent bet. But if you're a novice, you don't have a huge amount of time to research and learn before advancing through painful trial and error, and half the stuff you might just never find out without going back to previous games or branching out to D&D written material. Well, if that's who you are, you might honestly quit within hours due to the game's current and undeniable shortcomings. Baldur's Gate 3 has a lot to offer, a huge amount to offer, but what it offers won't be ideal for everyone. Make sure to be very thorough and extremely confident before you purchase this game. But that's it. If you want support, links down below, merch, locals, Odyssey, another gaming YouTuber to support as well, some social media links, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.